Witchcraft for Wayward Girls, the latest book from the much-loved horror writer Grady Hendrix. Is it worth your time? Did I like it? Did I loathe it? Let me give you my review without spoilers, with optional spoilers at the end, and general just chattery. Hello, if you're new here, I'm Sinead. Welcome to my spooky channel, where I review spooky horror books, where we're talking more ghostly gothic than gore, and also occasionally weird films, weird things from our childhood, and just general shenanigans. If you like what you hear and you like what you see, like, subscribe, comment, and be nice. I've just finished reading Witchcraft for Wayward Girls. I'm going to give you a little bit of an introduction to this book, then we'll get into the review that is spoiler-free, and as ever, at the end there will be an optional spoiler-full version. For those who have read it, for those who would like to know a little bit more, I will give you fair warning when that is coming. Grady Hendrix, very well-known horror writer. Probably if you've landed on this video, you already know his work and you're interested in what this next book is like. I've read most of Grady Hendrix's works. I think I've actually read all of them, and I've enjoyed them. I have enjoyed his horror stories because I like his creativity. They are interesting, they are challenging, they are generally with a bit of wry humour to them, and they're creative. I have mentioned before Horror Store, which is basically a haunted IKEA catalogue. I also love the Final Girl support group, with some notes, My Best Friend's Exorcism, and I was a big fan of his last book, How to Sell a Haunted House. But when I heard the premise of Witchcraft for Wayward Girls, I was cautious, anxious. I wasn't sure, because this book is set in 1970 in a home for unwed mothers. If you don't know what those are, oh, brace yourself. Okay, let's talk about the plot. Witchcraft for Wayward Girls is set in 1970, and it's set in a home for unwed mothers. This is a place where teenage girls who have gotten themselves in the family way, to put it nicely, are sent so they don't bring shame upon their family, they don't attract wandering eyes from society, wondering where that wedding ring is, and in this home they will be taken care of, they will have their baby, it will be given away for adoption, and then they can return to their normal life without a care in the world, as if nothing had happened. As a side note, if you need it, this is not fiction. Mother and baby homes existed around the world. The book opens with Neva, a 15-year-old girl who is in her car with her father being driven to Wellwood House. We understand that she has accidentally fallen pregnant, her boyfriend does not want anything to do with her, and her family really want her out of the picture until the baby is born. This 15-year-old girl is dumped essentially at this home, where the owner, Miss Wellwood, one of a generation of families who have run this house, explain to her the rules. She will take part in chores every day along with the other girls in the house until she goes into labour and her baby can be given away. Also, Neva will have to change her name to Fern because they don't use real names here and no one wants to know about your backstory or anything else that's going on outside of it. That's to be kept stum. Lovely. Fern is left in the home without even a goodbye from her father. She gets to know the other girls in the house. Rose, a fiery, free-spirited hippie who does not like to play by the rules. Zinnia, who is convinced that she and her boyfriend will marry once her baby comes and they will raise it together. There is also a girl, Holly, who is younger than the rest of them, and she has come to the home as a result of a horrific incident from her past. The girls have to do their daily chores, endure hours of boredom, and also humiliating and cold examinations from the on-site doctor, who definitely knows how women work better than the girls themselves. But one day the travelling library comes to the house and the girls get hold of a copy of How to Be a Groovy Witch, a tome on witchcraft, handed over by the enigmatic librarian. The girls get it into their minds that if they start dabbling with witchcraft, they may be able to regain some control over their lives, mete out some form of punishment to the staff at the house, but they soon find out that witchcraft is not exactly a groovy business. It comes with great suffering, great sacrifice, and power demands payment. That is a summary of the book, and here is my spoiler-free verdict on it. The horror of this book really comes from the horror of the way the girls are treated in society, and the horrors, really, of pregnancy, of birth, in the 1970s, of what it would have been like to give birth in that day and age for any woman, but let alone girls who are scared, frightened, have been given no information or understanding about the entirety of the process, how their body works, are treated as less than nothing, really, and are shouted at when they experience any pain or emotional distress. There are graphic scenes involving childbirth. It's horrifying and it's brutal. It takes a lot out of you. Really, I would suggest this is more of a historical fiction book than it is a horror story, even though there's spooky elements to it. It's really a snapshot of life inside these houses. The witchcraft and the supernatural elements really take a back seat in this book. They are there and they are important to the story, but they don't dominate. If you're expecting a version of The Craft in book form, it's not that. The witchcraft in this book is dark and it is nasty and it is labor intensive, no pun intended. The girls have to perform rituals at different times and they are hefty and long. And the results are not cutesy. There is a lot of suffering that has to come. There's sacrifices that the girls have to make in order to create spells where they're still questioning, did it make any difference? Really, we can do these spells, we can cast spells on people, but is it changing our situation at all if we are in a world where no one listens to us? The friendship between the 4 core girls in the story, Fern, Rose, Zinnia, and Holly, is very good, is very powerful, and you really feel the friendship all the way through and their bond together, and even when they're challenging each other, I think that works well. You do have Holly's story at the heart of this. Holly, the youngest girl, she has endured something horrific in her past, and her safety and saving her is really the driving force of the girls to make sure that she does not have to go back to what she has endured before. And that is very powerful, and I think that is the thing that holds all the girls together. The things that I have reservations about in this book, I think the characterization is quite light in places. Fern is quite vanilla for a lot of the book. She is telling things as they happen, and she's feeling emotions. There's not a huge amount of depth, weirdly, for her, but that does change in the last sort of quarter of the book, when she goes through a few things and we see how it affects her, and I think she comes to life a lot more then. The book is also very long. It's a long book as well. There are sections that drag because this book is far more focused on the female friendships and their development. You may be going into it thinking, when does the horror start? When does the witchcraft start? When is there going to be some action and consequence to it? There are some in there, but it did feel a little bit stretched out for some reason. This might sound strange to anyone who's read it, and also based on everything I've just said, I think this is a slightly sanitized version of A Mother and Baby Home. Now, it's not just because I'm Irish Catholic, and yeah, if you know your history, you know the history of the Mother and Baby Homes in Ireland and also around the world. The stories of these homes are heartbreaking, absolutely heartbreaking, and I don't particularly want to read a book that is laying out the horrors that women have suffered in these homes around the world. I'm not looking for that kind of level of detail. On one hand, I'm very glad that the girls in this book did not experience what we know happened in mother and baby homes around the world and through history. That may be reassuring for people wanting to read this book. You are not getting Magdalene Laundry here. Now, since starting doing reviews of horror books over on TikTok, I discovered that there was more discourse in the background about Grady Hendrix, where some people do struggle with the fact that all of his books, all of the ones that I have read, are all female characters. Very, very female-focused stories written by a man. Personally, I have always enjoyed Grady Hendrix books, and I have never felt anything particularly jarring about the female characters he's written, compared to some horror books that I have read written by men where the females are completely one-dimensional. They're either titting boobily down the stairs or they're just constantly going, why, what, why, I don't understand. All that being said, as soon as I found out the subject matter of his latest book, I had reservations. Why is a man writing a story all about a home filled with pregnant teenage girls? How well can you know the struggles that these girls are going through, and is it your story to tell? That is a question. That is a question I will leave out there. Okay, I'm going to add some extra thoughts here, but these are spoiler heavy, so if you have not read the book, if you do not want any spoilers, you can flick away now, but you are welcome to save this video and come back later to see if my spoiler thoughts match up with your own thoughts, or whether you think I'm completely mental. Liking all of this nonsense, please do hit subscribe so you can get more of it from me. For the spoilers in this book, at first the girls turn to witchcraft to get revenge on the doctors who have treated them. Poor Zinnia is suffering from horrific morning sickness through her pregnancy, and the doctors are laughing this off. The doctor who comes to the house is pretending it's all in her head. So they start dabbling with spells, they punish the doctor. They dabble with spells also to punish Miss Wellwood, who runs the household, and that manifests in quite a horrific way. Miss Wellwood ends up pregnant with eels. Eels, we think white snakes are eels. And Hagar, who is the cook in the household and is something of a doula, Hagar has to help her deliver these eels, and it is quite gruesome. So as the book progresses, most of the girls end up giving birth. We have Rose at first, who is defiant and fights against authority. She is taken to hospital, she gives birth. Her baby, who she wanted to raise herself, is taken away from her. And promises that were made to her and all the assurances are just thrown out the window. And she is left feeling absolutely desperate. Holly, the youngest one, it transpires that she has been part of a community where a priest has assaulted her, and that is why she is pregnant. The priest, the community, all do not want to know about this. In fact, when she gives birth, the baby is going to go to this priest, and Holly is going to have to return to that community. So Fern, Rose, and Zinnia understand that if things just continue the way that they do in the household, Holly is going to be going back into a house of abuse, and her baby is going to go there too. And this is then the mission of the girls in the house. They need to save Holly, and they are scrabbling around thinking, do we all run away? Do we go and try and raise money? And also, what happens when she gives birth? Do they stay and endure the real world, or do they go to something darker and unknown in terms of witchcraft? The librarian who's been helping them, Miss Parquet or Parse, I can't pronounce her name. The librarian, I'm just going to keep calling her that because I don't want to get it wrong. The librarian is sort of like a devil character through this as well. Puts the book into the girls' hands, meets them and takes them in their first ritual where they have to swear allegiance to her, kind of signing away their souls, really, and gives them the power to read the book and to understand it. The librarian is an elderly woman. She is nasty. She is quite conniving. It turns out that she is going to pass on soon. She has a coven of hippies who live with her in the forest. We meet them briefly, and they're quite interesting figures. But the librarian has been carrying the spirits and the thoughts of witches through the ages, and she is going to die soon, and she needs to pass on herself and all these other voices to the next vessel, as it were, and she's picked out Fern. That's the simplest way of describing it. She wants Fern to do it. I don't really think it was properly laid out why Fern was the chosen one, why it had to be Fern. Maybe other people picked that up and I didn't. It seems like Rose was the perfect person to choose for this, those who have read the book. But either way, she's after Fern, and Fern doesn't want to do this. She doesn't want to give up herself and doesn't want to go into the darkness. And the librarian is tempting her all the way through the story. Ultimately, Fern will give birth in the hospital to her baby. It turns out to be a girl. The hospital birth is cold, it's clinical, it's traumatic. There is very little pain relief. It's very graphic in terms of the actual process, the doctor and all the various things that can happen down there. Later in the book, we have another birth. Holly ends up going into labor, but this is a different one. She goes to Hagar, and she has a home birth with Hagar, and it's a different experience. It is still frightening and it's painful, but you have women around you and you have support and you have people working, and it's a very different kind of childbirth. The home finds them, they are taken back. The reverend who Holly has been assaulted by has arrived to claim the baby, and the girls end up calling the witches. Fern ends up calling the witches back just to create chaos to stop the men taking the baby away. The librarian is still chasing after Fern, going, I want you, in so many words. I mean, it's a little bit OTT. But then Holly steps in voluntarily and says, I'll go. Me and my baby will go. We will go and we will be with the witches and we'll take her place. Which felt like a bit of an anticlimax, to be honest. Because I think Holly had suggested this before in the book. And then in the end, it was Holly saying, I'll go. And you sort of felt like, was that a good ending for Holly? Because we've shown that the witches, they're powerful and they're free, but, they're not very nice. and she's going to go and have to be part of them and then carry all the burden of women through the ages. And yes, women's voices should survive and we should protect their history, but this doesn't seem like a great end for Holly. You can also view it as Holly's going to go, and her baby at least will be free, and they'll be with women who are powerful, and they will live on through the ages. In the closing chapters, we see the women in the story many years later reconnecting, and for Fern, she does manage to reconnect with the baby that was taken from her, that she lost, and it's lovely. It's really, really nice. The book was fine in the end. It wasn't particularly fulfilling as a great horror story, great horror novel. I liked the story of the girls. It is all about them and everything they've gone through. The witchcraft element of it, it felt underused, even though I liked that it was dark. I liked that it was nasty in many ways and it wasn't fluffy. And really the book did feel disjointed in parts. There were moments in it where you predominantly have Fern's perspective, but then in the middle of the page it suddenly changes to the perspective of Miss Wellwood and then back to Fern. He sort of was jumping around a little bit and I didn't love that. It felt a little bit confused. It was just a cacophony of voices really in the story. I read the book in 3 or 4 days. I walked away going, yeah, it's fine. I think I wanted to love it a bit more, but it's still a solid book and I'd be interested to know what other people think of it. Okay, there we go. That is the long rambling wrap up of Witchcraft for Wayward Girls. As ever, if you've liked what you heard today, please subscribe and leave a comment with your views on this book. Please put spoiler warnings if you're going to talk about them. And also, I welcome suggestions of more videos you'd like to hear from me in the future. Stay spooky. Bye-bye.